Good evening. We begin this edition with breaking news of what could be the most significant and devastating military reversal for Russia since the failure of its initial invasion in the spring of 2022. Multiple high-level defense and intelligence sources are confirming that elements of the Russian armed forces, numbering in the tens of thousands, have been effectively encircled and cut off in a sprawling pocket in occupied eastern Ukraine. If confirmed, this represents not just a tactical victory for Ukraine, but a potential strategic catastrophe for the Kremlin, capable of fundamentally altering the course of this war. The location of this event is a critical sector of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, an area Russian forces have spent nearly 10 months grinding to capture at a horrific human cost. The force at risk, according to preliminary NATO and Ukrainian intelligence assessments, is staggering, potentially up to 80,000 Russian military personnel. This includes frontline combat troops, support units, and the vital logistical tail that keeps an army in the field. According to reports, they are now surrounded, with their main supply routes severed. Ukrainian forces, executing a meticulously planned and covertly prepared operation, launched a powerful multi-pronged offensive over the past 96 hours. The strategy was surgical, striking not at the strongest Russian fortifications, but at the seams between units and along weakly defended supply corridors. Ukrainian mechanized brigades achieved startling breakthroughs. To the north, they advanced from the direction of the recently liberated city of Lyman. To the south, forces pushed up from the outskirts of Donetsk city, and in a daring long-range thrust, airborne and special operations units reportedly struck deep behind Russian lines to seize key road and rail junctions. The pincers have closed. The cities of Svatove, Kremlin, and the devastated town of Rubizhne are now at the center of what military analysts are preliminarily calling the Donbas pocket. The implications are historic. An encirclement of this scale has not been seen in European warfare since the Second World War. The maneuver threatens to annihilate a significant portion of Russia's remaining effective combat power in the east, and puts at risk the very territorial gains that Vladimir Putin used to justify his illegal annexation of these regions just months ago. To understand the magnitude of this potential encirclement, we must first analyze the battlefield that preceded it. For months, this sector was the scene of a brutal war of attrition. Russian forces, spearheaded by Wagner Group mercenaries and Storm Z units, conducted a relentless artillery-heavy assault on the city of Bakhmut. The goal was simple: to create a propaganda victory. But this obsessive focus on Bakhmut, analysts now believe, created a fatal strategic blindness. As Russia poured its best assault troops and the bulk of its artillery ammunition into the fight for a single city, a fight described as a veritable meat grinder, it stretched its forces thin across a vast front line elsewhere. The units in the Svatove and Kremlin sector were often second-rate, poorly motivated reservists, understrength regiments brought in from the Far East, and exhausted troops rotated from the carnage of Bakhmut. The Russian high command, fixated on the symbolic prize of Bakhmut, failed to adequately reinforce the shoulders of their own salient. They created a protrusion of occupied territory that was inherently vulnerable. Ukrainian intelligence, with superior surveillance and reconnaissance from Western partners, observed this vulnerability for months. They didn't just see a line on a map, they saw a massive, slow-moving target. Ukrainian planning was a masterclass in operational security and deception, known in Russian military doctrine as maskirovka. While the world's attention was on Bakhmut, and while Western analysts debated where a spring offensive might fall, Ukraine quietly assembled its decisive force elsewhere. Newly formed assault brigades equipped with modern Western armor, such as Leopard 2 tanks and Bradley vehicles, were trained and held in reserve, moving at night under radio silence. The offensive did not begin with a massive artillery barrage that would telegraph the main effort. Instead, it began with widespread and disruptive attacks by long-range weapons, such as HIMARS systems and Storm Shadow missiles, striking command posts, ammunition depots, and key bridges dozens of kilometers behind the front. This paralyzed the Russian command capacity and crippled their ability to shift reserves. On the ground, the current situation is described as chaotic and increasingly desperate for the Russians. Intercepted communications, which have increased dramatically in volume and panic, reveal units reporting they are cut off, surrounded, and running low on everything. One intercepted message from a Russian battalion commander simply states, "They are everywhere. We cannot move. What are our orders?" But the promised orders, it seems, are not coming. Inside the developing pocket are the remnants of several badly mauled Russian divisions and brigades, including elements of the 3rd Army Corps and regiments of the 20th and 144th Motor Rifle Divisions. Most significantly, intelligence suggests a large concentration of Russian artillery and logistical support is now trapped inside. This is the key to understanding the potential scale of the disaster. An army moves on its stomach and fights with its ammunition. These trapped units include vital trucks, fuel tankers, field kitchens, and most importantly, the ammunition depots that feed the massive volume of Russian fire. This is the clock ticking against the Kremlin. Without resupply, a modern army begins to die within days. Food runs out, medical supplies are exhausted, vehicles grind to a halt as fuel reserves dry up. And crucially, artillery batteries, Russia's primary advantage, fire their last shells. Once silent, they become useless metal, and the infantry loses its protection. Ukraine's strategy, therefore, may not be an immediate, costly frontal assault to destroy the pocket, but a methodical reduction. They will wait, tightening the noose with drones and precision artillery as morale and supplies within the cauldron dwindle, aiming to force a surrender. This is where Putin faces his Dunkirk moment, but without a sea channel to escape. His trapped forces have only 3 grim options. First, a mass surrender, which would be the largest of the war and a humiliation the regime cannot abide. Second, a desperate, bloody breakout attempt, which would likely turn into a slaughter against prepared Ukrainian defenses. Or third, a slow, agonizing degradation, starved, bombarded, and isolated until the units simply cease to exist as fighting formations. The reverberations of this encirclement are being felt far beyond the muddy fields of Donbas. In Brussels and Washington, there is a palpable sense of vindication mixed with urgent recalculation. The provision of Western weapons systems has just demonstrated a tangible and decisive return on investment. The argument that support for Ukraine is a bottomless pit is shattered. The argument that it is a strategic investment in European security is proven. Conversations about providing F-16 fighter jets and long-range missiles will now accelerate dramatically. Conversely, in Moscow, the atmosphere is described as toxic and panicked. Putin has built a system that cannot tolerate public failure. The state media narrative of a steady, successful special military operation has just collided with the potential of an 80,000-man catastrophe. How will the Kremlin explain this? The loss of equipment in the pocket would represent a material blow that its industrial base, hampered by sanctions, cannot replace. But the loss of the men would be existential. Russia has already suffered hundreds of thousands of casualties. Adding tens of thousands more in a single week would force another round of mobilization that is even more unpopular and destabilizing. For the Russian soldiers inside the pocket, the world has shrunk to a few square kilometers of Ukrainian earth. The experience, pieced together from intercepted communications and recent testimony, is one of accelerating desperation. The initial shock has given way to a grinding anxiety. Deliveries have stopped. The comforting sound of their own artillery is falling silent. Drone footage shows columns of armored vehicles abandoned on roadsides for lack of fuel. The most critical shortage is medical. Intercepted pleas describe field hospitals out of antibiotics or painkillers. The world is witnessing tonight the unfolding of a military catastrophe for Russia and a strategic masterpiece for Ukraine. The 80,000 encircled men are not just a number, they are the potential pivot point of this war. This proves that Ukrainian courage combined with Western technology and intelligence can not only stop the Russian war machine, but dismember it. It exposes the fatal weakness behind Putin's facade of strength, an army stretched thin, poorly led, and now potentially decimated. The message coming from the fields of Donbas is clear. The era of irreversible Russian gains is over. The initiative has decisively shifted. The questions now are not about if Ukraine can defend itself, but how far and how fast it can liberate its land, and what price a cornered Kremlin will try to exact on the world stage in response to its defeat. The coming hours are critical. We will continue watching.